got to see Distubed's 25-year anniversary of the Sickness tour at the TD Garden last week, and I wish I had the words to describe how I felt. But we're going to get there. And so the question is are they worth seeing? Are they still good live? How is David's voice on stage? I'm going to talk all about that. But first, if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button down below and be sure to check out this week's segment of Newbie Review, where we're going to be checking out a band out of the UK called Alternative Tales. From my understanding, they are very similar to Ice Nine Kills in the fact of creating songs based on films, but instead of horror films like Ice Nine Kills does, these guys seem to be making songs based off of fairy tales. So kind of excited to check that out, and I hope I see you there with me. But let's not waste any more time. Let's get going. So I was lucky enough to have an awesome sister, not just any awesome sister, but an awesome sister who went viral last year on TikTok, as you may recognize as the Mirror Girl, and she did this song. And fast forward to about a month ago, Distubed's photographer Britt Bowman reached out to Christina asking, hey, do you want to come to the show? It'd be cool if you met the band. And Christina's response was all excited, freaking out, waking up her husband in the middle of the night saying, oh my gosh, Distubed's going to have me come to their show. Would you be heartbroken if I invited my brother? And his reply, disoriented, poor guy, saying, oh, I don't care. But I guess the next morning he didn't remember that conversation, but it worked out for me. And of course, since I had an unhealthy obsession since high school of Distubed, there was no way I was going to say no. There was no way I was going to say no.
Duh.
Anyways, time to talk about the show. So the show starts off with Sevendust. Now, Sevendust, in my opinion, it has to be probably one of the most underrated metal bands. They're amazing musicians. They're very talented. They have great performance on stage, and just so many people that still don't know them, and it just kind of drives me nuts. I remember when I didn't know who they were, and that was like 13 years ago. I got to share the stage with them, and I just remember watching them and saying, who are these guys? I noticed Morgan Rose, this guy just throwing his drumsticks, and I think the bass player was catching them and throwing them back to him, and I'm just like taking in all these things that other musicians do to learn from them and their performances and choreography. And I'm just like, how do I compete with that? Like, these guys are nasty. Like, they're awesome. But so it was just really cool seeing the show start with Sevendust. I was really excited. And then it followed with 3 Days Grace, which is awesome as well, because we got Adam Gontier come back in the band, and he gave a lot of credit to the band for carrying on, which is just a mad respect for him. Right in the middle of their set, he just talked about the departure and then just how 3 Days Grace, the band, picked up and they just kept pushing forward, and he just praised the band members like for a good 2-3 minutes, and a lot of respect for that. It was very humbling, and just it was nice to hear. And then finally Distubed comes out, and they have 2 sets. Their first set was the Sickness album, start to finish, like you were pushing play after putting that CD in your CD player. And I'm very tuned in to the vocalist, and I worked at a music venue for a few years, and we had a lot of bands come and go, and some of these 30-year, 40-year musicians, their voices, you can't avoid your vocals eventually starting to wear out. It's gonna happen. And the bands a lot of times will compensate and bring their keys down a little bit to allow the vocalist to still have that same enunciation, same clarity, but bring down the key where they're not gonna strain their vocals and give off a very poor performance. But a lot of times you'll see some kind of change. Now, they had the same key, and David sounded exactly the same as he did 25 years ago to me. It was very amazing to see that album being performed exactly the way I just remember hearing it the first time.
Oh my god! Wow!
Not only do they sound perfect, they had probably the most perfect theatrics that I've seen. And they came out with a bang. And I mean, David Draiman comes out in this straight jacket at the very beginning. Eventually, there's so much pyro, right? There's just so much pyro, which is great. It heats the place up. It adds to that experience. But also, there's this ginormous guy, which is the mascot name, if you don't know. Guy, their mascot, just inflating through some kind of mechanism, and I was in awe as this thing got bigger and bigger and bigger. And even after just 30 seconds of it being fully inflated, my brain was kind of tricking myself thinking, wait, is this like projected? No. I literally watched it blow up, and I'm now it's so nicely detailed at every square foot of this thing. this monstrous, ginormous prop that I'm actually, my brain's getting tricked. Like that's just how wonderful it was. Another cool theatrics I thought was very intriguing was David Draiman getting put into the electric chair and getting electrocuted for Meaning of Life, which I was just in awe. I thought that was just so cool and just so extreme, and I just like, I've never seen that on stage. I've never seen that before, you know, so I definitely thought that this type of performance gave Rammstein like a run for its money.
Any last words?
When they performed The Sound of Silence, they brought out the piano, a conga for Mike Wengren, and they just performed it in just a beautiful way, and I'm very impressed by their performance. And when the show ended, we got to go backstage to the Family and Friends Lounge thanks to Britt Bowman. If you don't know who Britt Bowman is, I'm going to drop a link down below for you to check out. She's a very, very, very talented photographer. It's quite clear why she's Disturbed's photographer, and I think she does photography for Volbeat, SNL, I believe a bunch of other bands. So I'm going to drop a link, give her a follow. She's also just an incredible person, very down to earth, very smart, very witty. Is very, very sharp. Reason why she does what she does. And I'm also going to drop a link for my sister. I love her. She's fun, quirky, funny. You're going to love checking her out if you don't know who she is, both TikTok and YouTube. So go follow her, subscribe to her channel. But anyways, we went backstage to the Family and Friends Lounge, and I was very excited. My sister looks at me when we got the passes. She's like, were you expecting this? I was like, I was not expecting this. Oh my gosh. Literally thought I was going to cry.
Yes, very sad. Anyway.
So I'm backstage, and we're surrounded by the members of 3 Days Grace, Disturbed, Sevendust, and actually Mike Mangini from Dream Theater was there, and I completely missed that because I was looking at him and I was just like, how do I know you? I'm looking at this guy and he's talking to Mike Wengren, and I'm just standing there looking at him like, I know Mike. I just watched Mike on stage. Where do I know you? And it dawns on me when I leave. I was like, that was Mike Mangini from Dream Theater. And I totally missed it. I completely... Anyways, I was happy to get a conversation in with Dan Donegan because I wanted to pick his brain about his songwriting. He is probably the reason why I picked up a guitar and joined a band to begin with. I was really blessed to be able to have a good, long, intimate, conversation on the songwriting process, and then just a little bit about their older days. So it was very cool. And John Moyer, the bass player, my sister and I both were very taken back by how warm he was and how just awesome and down to earth he was. There's a lot of musicians, a lot of artists that I've met that are very just transactional in their heads when they're speaking to you. They're speaking to you from a business point of, you're my fan, you're a transaction, you are somebody that I need to contain my business. But it wasn't like that with John. It was very real, it was very raw, and it was very warm. Not saying that Dan and Mike or any of the other members that we got to meet were, because everybody did seem like very warm and very welcoming and just kind. But something about John Moyer was just different. But while I was back there, I was also glad to see Adam and talk to Adam, because I completely missed the fact that he came back to 3 Days Grace, and so I wanted to learn about that and how that happened. The whole night was just amazing. I feel like I got to hang out with the guys, so maybe I have a little bit of bias on whether or not I think that this band is worth seeing. But I will tell you right now, if you are a Disturbed fan, like old school, you love the Sickness album, this is going to be your opportunity to see that album be performed live and perfectly with the most amazing theatrics, and also you're going to see all of their greatest hits. So that's their second half of the set, by the way, their greatest hits. I would absolutely go online, grab tickets if you can, and go see them. So that's all for this video. This was a long rant. Thank you for sticking with me this long. If you're new to the channel, like I said, hit that subscribe button down below. And until next time, have a good one.